All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to yet another conversation with the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Brian Flynn from Super7. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. If I'm a myth and a legend, I'm like the Sasquatch of toys over here, right? Like nobody knows. You can't really find him. We haven't seen him in years, but there's evidence that he's still here.
See, I was gonna say that you'd be like the worst Sasquatch ever, because like as of last week, there's a whole bunch of New York Toy Fair videos with you at
He's
the
like
booth.
he's hiding in plain sight. Like it's not that hard, guys. Like come on. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys have been keeping super busy. It feels like it hasn't been that long since our last chat, but I guess it's been almost 5 months at this point. And
Has it been that long?
it's
Was it
since
November of
Godzilla
last
Day.
year? Wow. That's crazy. You're right. It has been a while. It's been a hot minute, Kyle. We've
Mm.
missed you.
Oh, we missed you too, Brian. And I had all this stuff loaded up to talk about, and then I emailed you, and you're like, "Let's chat after Toy Fair." I was like, "Okay, let's chat after Toy Fair." And then a whole slew of other things got added to the list. So
Great.
this,
We'll talk about all of it.
yeah, there's quite a bit to talk about. So I think it'd be good if we just jump right into it. So let's get into the mood first, because we're talking
All
about
right.
Toy Fair. Let's get the booth background up and running.
Oh, all
And
right.
and
No, that is the San Diego Comic Con booth.
I
That is not.
know there was no good shots at the New York one. I was hoping you wouldn't notice, but
That was San Diego 2023, I believe. And that Mummy Boy Gold chain was made by Ashley Anderson. Shout out to Ashley for hooking that up.
yeah, Ashley's great. She's fantastic. All right, so let's just dive right into it. We'll sort of work our way up in figure size. Uh,
Okay.
we talked Godzilla Day, and Series 6, Wave 6 of Reaction just came out. King Caesar, Godzilla 64. And then a month later, we get hit with Wave 7. 4 new figures, Mechagodzilla 75, the green G54, all that good stuff. And
The
then
Titanosaurus, don't leave
the,
a Titan.
the Titanosaurus. Believe me, I got a question about Titanosaurus.
All right.
And then a month later, we get the Celebration of Glow, the 13th month, 3 more figures.
Yep.
And then February hits and Wave 8 comes out. This is basically like 4 waves of Reaction in 6 months. How are you guys doing this so quick?
Well, I don't know about 4 way. I mean, in the end, it's 10 figures over 4 months. Like, I hardly call 2 figures or 1 figures a whole wave. But I do say that there is a bunch of stuff that has come out. But part of it was like, we talked like right before the first thing dropped, and now we're talking right at the end after the next thing dropped. So you've got the 2 big waves and then some isolated glow in the dark moments in there.
Yeah, well, there's a whole bunch, and I think that the Celebration 65 might be the quickest turnaround on a glow variant you guys have done yet.
I think it's because the original Celebration 65 came out a little later than we expected it to, and then so it kind of bumped up to it. But that first one, yeah, it sold out so quickly that we're like, I guess it's fine to bring it out. But yeah, it's one of those same thing where you're like, I think people are going to really like it, but you never know until you put it out, and then people really like it.
Yeah, yeah. I've seen it all over the place. People are really liking this one. I've seen people who don't typically collect Reaction picking up the Celebration 65. So, it's really standout release. Now, but because we mentioned it, Titanosaurus, we talked about it first conversation together, and I've got mine here, and it's been sort of talked around that when a figure does well in Reaction, it sort of bumps it up a little bit in terms of Ultimate's consideration. And so my question, Brian,
you're making you're trying to put a vote in. You're trying to make a fan.
I'm trying to put several votes in, actually.
Oh, look at that!
How many more do I have to buy?
Yeah, it's not so much a matter of how many more you have to buy. It's sort of the sort of rolling roadmap that we have, which I think we've talked about before, which was like starting a Reaction, because Reaction is a retro format. We started with the old school Godzilla 54, and we're working our way forward, which we'll talk about with that next wave of Godzilla. And then with Ultimates, you're starting with a modern form factor. We're starting much more modern, and we will eventually work our way backwards. So we're still in the modern era of Ultimates.
Mhm.
We haven't gone back into Showa yet.
Right.
So at some point, all of us willing that we will get to all of those things and more, Kyle. And then
Okay.
you can have Titanosaurus Ultimates.
Oh, perfect. That's awesome. So one of the questions I'm seeing around Wave 8 is Wave 8 finally breaks into the Heisei era, and I guess the Reiwa era with -1.
Yeah.
But you and I have talked.
What I tend to call modern Godzilla, which is anything they say and newer.
Right. 30 years old, but
Yes.
who's counting? One of the recurring comments I'm seeing are folks wondering, now that we're in Heisei, does that mean there won't be any new Showa characters coming?
That is not true. There will be more Showa characters. They are, I think, obviously for the Showa characters that haven't been made, we're getting, we're pretty far deep in the weeds on that stuff. So there are a bunch more, not a bunch more, but there are several more Showa characters that are in the works, but they will be sort of, they're not going to come out sort of part of like the main line that you're going to go and see on shelf at Target or wherever.
Sure.
Because for lack of a better description, if I were to make, Kamacuras, 99% of people that walk up will be like, I have no idea who that is or
Right.
what that is for Godzilla. So it's like, all right, and that it doesn't make as much sense to put on shelf there. So we're going to still make, there's some, Kamacuras is just one of them, but there's some great characters still to be made from Showa, but they're all pretty deep cuts, and so we'll be releasing them in a slightly different manner.
Sure. I think that makes sense, and we've talked about it a little bit before, but I think that now that you're starting to get into Heisei, we've talked before, and you've mentioned this in other interviews about how you sort of need to be strategic in getting those deep cut characters. You need to have your repaints, your strategic retools. And I think now that you're in Heisei, a whole new door is open to some of those retools that you can get out and those repaints that make sense, so that when you get into those deeper Showa cut characters, there's a means of getting them out the door. So
yeah, because they're all, well, not that, but they're all going to be custom. And the reality is we don't reuse that much tooling, quite honestly. We reuse it sometimes in recolor formats simply because that there's a storyline there, but it's not like, oh, well, we're going to reuse this, this body tool and this legs for over here. We're not really doing that. Most everything's pretty custom at this point. But I think, also as a kaiju collector, if you will, I'm like, all right, what more? Let's make more colors. Let's make more colors.
Right. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about the blind boxes in a moment, but
yes.
You're doing some really, really like creative and unique things with blind boxes that, you add some glitter to it. I'm a happy camper,
I think that sentiment is shared with a lot of people, actually. Please, more glitter.
More glitter.
Yeah, I think, with the Godzilla, with the glow, it's sort of two different storylines converging there. You've got on all the monster toys we've made, Universal Monsters, the horror hosts like Toxic Crusader, anything that we've done that's sort of been monster oriented, we've done a glow parallel. And on that side, they're all on Remco inspired cards because that's what the glow in the dark cards look like in the 80s. And on the Godzilla series, rather than making them Remco, we really wanted to have this much more illustrated look and just really make them feel much more Japanese with the die cuts and everything. And so you've sort of got like, here's my set of characters as they show up in the movie. And then hopefully we get to all the same characters in glow in the dark because glow in the dark is awesome. And that's sort of like, you're going to get two versions of everybody that way. It's not a matter of like, oh, we're not selling enough and we got to figure out how to reuse the mold. It's sort of like, look, there's a line of glow in the dark Godzilla, and some people only collect the glow figures and they don't collect the regular figures. And there's people that collect the regular figures that don't collect the glow figures, and that's fine. So I feel like those are sort of parallel paths, and then you get into all the other fun stuff that happens along the way, like the clear greens or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. Like the glow lines are meant to be special moments in the line, and you can pretty much rest assured that once you see a new character in the main line, that there will be a glow version that you can pick up.
Yeah.
And I love the packaging. Like I have a walls for both the main line and the glow in the dark line, and yeah, they look
Awesome.
fantastic. But speaking about parallel lines, at New York Toy Fair, we got our first glimpse at new Cherry Blossom Festival variants. We got the Jet Jaguar on the left, and we got a Godzilla 54 on the right. What can you tell me about these two guys?
I mean, we've been talking about a cherry blossom festival figures for years. If we go back to the old vinyl days when we had our shop in Japantown, so for everybody who don't know, the first two iterations of this the Super7 store in San Francisco were both in Japantown on Post Street. We had our small spot, then we had the bigger spot, then we moved to Upper Haight, then we moved to 16th Street. And so we had done some Cherry Blossom Festival figures back then in vinyl, and we would sometimes do some of the trade fest and the hosts during Cherry Blossom Weekend or leading up to it, not the day of the parade because that would be chaos. So we used to do a lot more around Cherry Blossom Festival when we were in Japantown, and it made a lot more sense. And we've just been talking about coming back to it and talking about coming back to it. And it finally sort of matured, I guess, if you will. And we finally were like, last year we're like, no, we really should do this. And let's do a Godzilla and let's do Jet Jaguar, because Jet Jaguar in pink looks great. And we haven't done enough Jet Jaguar lately. So yeah, it's a 54 and Jet Jaguar. And Mike Sutphin did these amazing card backs for us. And it's fun. It makes sense. There's a story there. There's a theme. If it's not your thing, you don't need to get it. And there's definitely some people that don't buy other Godzilla stuff from us that really like this idea and this story and this theme. So, yeah, just a cool little set for Cherry Blossom Day, or not day, but the whole month really. But
yeah, for sure. And same story. I'm seeing like folks who may not be into the main line. They see these releases and they think, that card art is so nice that I want to grab these. Like it's something special to add to the collection.
And it's coming back to having fun with this. And like, while I would love for you to buy them all, you don't have to buy them all. But it's like, oh, that's a cool concept story. Like the reason makes sense. The colorway makes sense. The packaging makes sense. It's a nice little capsule. So
yeah. Now, the tag says Q1 2025. Is the intention to align this with the Cherry Blossom Festival in Japan?
I believe it's aligning with when we're having it here.
Okay.
Yeah, which is roughly the same time frame. I think it's a couple weeks later. I don't know the exact date, so I apologize for not having my dates ready in advance, but it's coming up soon.
Sure. I'll throw something up on screen and... on the right here, we also got a glow-in-the-dark version of the Aurora kit.
Yep.
And I feel like this one you could see coming. But based on the old card art. But yeah, what can you tell me about this one?
It's the same thing. This is the way the glow-in-the-dark version of the Aurora kit came out. So when we're talking about like same thing, all these sculpts, we kind of typically do a glow parallel. It's like, well, Aurora did a glow parallel of this kit in the past, and it had glow-in-the-dark head, hands, and spines, and that's it. And it's like, all right, well then that's what you make, because that's how it was done in the 60s.
Yeah, that's really cool.
The glow kit come out in the 70s, where the original kit came out in the 60s, but somebody's going to correct me on that. And I apologize in advance. The glow kit was technically the 70s, while the original kit was the 60s.
Oh, that's okay. I've got the original ReAction Shogun one that you made.
Yep.
So it's kind of nice to see it come full circle. It's like, no, here's the actual one in the appropriate glow plastic. So that's really cool.
Yeah, it's once again just trying to have some fun with it, and like I said, if you collected them, like we're talking about, like the glow one comes in the square box and the regular one comes in the long box. It's like, it's just, I don't know. I see that colorway and it's so weird and wrong, like the way they did it. It's
Yeah.
just like we just make his head in his hands and like there's no transition, there's no nothing. It's just
No.
like here's one piece of plastic, and we did this one in this color. We called it a day. And it was
Yeah.
like, man, you guys could have put a little more effort into this, but all right. Like, why didn't you make the whole kit glow in the dark? Like, I don't know. You know,
Yeah.
that part seems to have eluded them. I'm not sure why, but that's also what makes it so wrong. It's right.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah,
like he's wearing a green sweatshirt.
that's so funny. It's like every Godzilla toy, every toy in general has a story behind it, and I guess we'll just never know what the story was behind this one.
Yeah, I mean that whole series. There's just some glow parts, and I'm sure somebody would be like, "It was more expensive," but or whatever it was. But it's just so random, like the way the neck just sort of pops out. It's like
Mhm.
I think it's so weirdly colored. Like everything else we do, obviously, it's like it's just the whole figure's glow, and then we paint it. But in this one, it's like no, just a couple parts. That's all you get.
Right. Cool. So moving on to blind boxes. Since we've last
Yeah.
spoken, there's been 3 new ones.
Yes.
And it's funny, we sort of
Three new
alluded
ones
to.
announced. That doesn't mean they're all coming at the same time, but yes.
Right. It's funny, we alluded to the Marusan one last time because there was a bit of a listing that got out, but here it is. We've got
Yep.
Marusan, Monster Island, and then a new -1 set that was first unveiled at New York Toy Fair. The Marusan set, each of these decos is based on a real world toy that was released way back when, and so each of these has a story behind them, and I'm curious to hear from you. You got the original Plamo kit, you've got the
Yeah, the play model
Hawaii
kit
sprays.
is the brown. Well, not completely. So the play model kit is the brown with the red.
Hmm.
Below that, that's Marusan 55 blue with silver. That's of the original Marusan toy.
Hmm.
Uh, the flesh with metallic blue, it often gets called Hawaii. It's not Hawaii. They were exported heavily into Hawaii. The Hawaii would be the metallic green and gold on green.
Ah.
The flesh vinyl is when Bullmark is going out of business
Hmm.
and they can't afford to dye their vinyl anymore.
Hmm.
So they just shoot everything in flesh and then paint over it.
I see.
Those were also heavily exported into Hawaii, so they are often called Hawaii, but they are not technically Hawaii.
Gotcha.
Um, then you have the clear green with metallic gold, and then the secret. Maybe we're not supposed to talk about. I think we showed the secret though. Anybody can look it up for 10 seconds. The secret is glow with orange, no, glow with green. And that is based off of, so when we did the giant size Marusan Godzilla in the early 2000s, that is, like 18 inches tall, we did 3 custom colorways of it. We did the glow with orange, which we released on card. We did a glow with green, and then we did the glow with blue.
Hmm.
But the glow with green with the spray, that's based on a release that we made 20 years ago at Super7.
Right.
So
That,
small world. We're referencing our own toy at that point.
yeah. Yeah, it was at Toy Fair, and it was cool to see that. I think that'll look nice to the glow with orange one that came out on Godzilla Day, and it
Yep.
sounds like there's gonna be a glow with blue, maybe.
Maybe, or we'll see. Like this is my favorite sculpt of Godzilla ever,
Hmm.
just because of the toy and what the toy means. And it, in some ways, you look at it immediately and you're like, "Oh, that's Godzilla," but you're like, it doesn't look actually like any suit ever,
Yeah.
you know. But it's such a cool thing. So I don't know. We'll just see how sort of people have reacted really well when we've done the other toys. We'll see how they do on this, because there's definitely collectors that like, oh, I want it to look like the suit. I want it to look like the movie.
Sure.
And this is something that sort of like the Shogun Godzilla, where it doesn't actually look at all. Technically, if you break it down, it doesn't really look like Godzilla at all, but yet it is completely Godzilla.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Looking forward to getting some of those in hand. On the left here, we got Godzilla Monster Island, which I believe debuted at Walmart first, but is now starting to creep out into other retailers and is available from Super7 Direct.
Yes.
These look very close, but do slightly different to their on-screen appearance decos. And I'm kind of curious, like we talked before about how Baragon sold through very quickly. And do you see this as like one way to get some of these sculpts back out into the market in a new way?
Yeah, somebody's going to think you're a shill, but yeah, that's exactly what the things are. This already, I already see the comment. We haven't even finished the interview. This guy's just a shill. Yeah. Like, anyways, yeah, obviously when we talk about the toy, the Marusan stuff, that's much more expressive and interpretive of Godzilla. And then there's sort of like, I want the one that looks like it's on the movie. And that's really where the Monster Island sets are going to kind of play in. And then we're coming back to figures that are sold out that people can't get, and making them available again. Also, with a few tweaks. And then we also make sure to tweak the color a little bit. So if you got the original one when it came out, it's not the same as the one you're going to get in the box. It's not to drive you necessarily, but also it's sort of like you're a collector. You bought it when it came out. You got this one on card. So you've got that one. But this one's still appropriate and still cool. It makes sense. But like, I think it's not as obvious here. Like that 64 up there, he's a lot more light gray than the other one. Here it looks a little darker than I think he is in the final. So if you put them next to it, it's like, oh, they're distinctly different. But at the same time, if you don't have that other one, you're still like, oh, cool, got my Godzilla, and it's fine. So yeah, it's really that, like, how do we get those characters that people can't get anymore? Because if we just make them on card again, I don't know. What we've seen so much, at least here, and I know that there's a few people that really get upset about the blind boxes, but that people really, really like the blind boxes in some ways more than they like figures on card. So I'm happy to. I want people to collect Godzilla toys and have Godzilla toys and buy Godzilla toys, and rather than making Baragon on card again, I'll put him in the blind box and make him again so you can get him. And now you can get Baragon and you can get Megalon and you can get Mechagodzilla again. That's how we're doing it. Plus, then there's a chase and there's a fun figure in there.
Yeah, and we've seen that one too. This is a
glittery. It was on display.
Glittery shadow Mechagodzilla.
Yeah, it's black. It's clear. It's like a dark gray, but kind of blackish, clear dark gray with glitter in it. Mechagodzilla.
Yeah. I mean, Super7 like has all these different Toho lines, and to me, like there's Ultimate's ReAction, there's Fun now, Super Cyborg, Super Shogun. Like those are all different ways to celebrate the property and the hobby that you like. And putting ReAction figures into blind boxes, to me, is just another variation. Maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't.
Yeah. And quite frankly, for the most part, people are really excited. There's a few people that are completists, much like I would be, that get a little frustrated because they're like, you just announced 3 new blind boxes. But it's like, yes, we announced 3 new blind boxes, but this is going to be for like the next 6 to 8 months. Like it's not like I'm going to throw out 3 more blind boxes next month. It's like, if you're thinking about your Targets and your Walmarts, they set twice a year. Like, okay, here's your set. Like, there's plenty of time. There's plenty of time.
Yeah. So speaking of Target, -1 blind box series, 7 figures being shown in the picture. Godzilla.com reporting that you can start finding these in Target today.
Yeah, it's happening. The Godzilla -1 box, blind box set, came together really quickly. Where like Monster Island has been something we've been working on. There's going to be, over the course of a very methodical and slow amount of time, there's going to be more than one series of Monster Island that has different characters.
Sure.
And that's where you can get some of the characters that we no longer have. Plus, that would make sense if some of those other characters that we haven't made might show up, stuff like that. -1, obviously, when that movie came out, was such a monster that no one was expecting. No pun intended, but that sounded really good. It was just like, we been working on the reaction figure for it, but it was still like the appetite for -1 is almost separate again from the appetite for Godzilla as a whole.
Right.
Like there is, I collect Godzilla, and then there's people that only collect Showa, or people collect Heisei, or they collect it all, and they're up to modern. But then there's -1, and -1 is almost its own beast altogether. So once again, in this view of this thing where people go, oh shit, 3 blind boxes, this is way too much. In my mind, I'm talking to one person with the Marusan blind box. That's more of I like variants. I like the toy history. I'm into the interpretive world of Godzilla. Get a little more arty with it, whatever. Monster Island is like, I'm a classic guy that's been buying all your Showa figures since they started. I'm really into collecting the line. I want Baragon. I want Megalon. I want that. And then there's -1, which is yet another group of people. And there's some people that want all 3 of these or 2 of these, but it's almost like we're talking to 3 different customers, at least on our side. So it's not like I'm trying to like run 3 sets of blind boxes down everybody's throat at once. It's more like, all right, they happen to be kind of landing on top of each other, unfortunately, but they're really sort of at 3 different perspectives. So a -1 blind box came together sort of really quickly. Like we started working on the reaction figure, last year to get it out. It came out, what did it come? Did it come out in January?
February was the carded.
Yeah, February. I mean, it just came out, but I mean, that's because we started working on it after the movie came out last year. We're like, oh, like same thing. Like we had the Ultimate ready to go, but we didn't know it was going to be what it was. And it was like, how quickly can we get a reaction figure in the works?
Right.
And then even as we got that into the works, we're like, 1 reaction figure is not enough. And so it was sort of like the question or the demand was really, how do we do more with what -1 is? Obviously, you've only got Godzilla in the movie. There's not a whole ecosystem around him, but there's enough different moments of the movie. So we really tried to come back and play with the moments of the movie and then sculpt new parts. So you've got, so the one that is on card is Closed Mouth, I think.
Yeah, it's this one down
Closed
here.
Mouth. I think he's got a curved. Wait, is that Closed Mouth or open?
This one I'm hovering over. This is Closed Mouth, but his tail seems crooked.
Yeah, so the one on card I think is open mouth, straight tail. So then this one is closed mouth with a curved tail. Not a huge difference, but then same thing. The light up spine is yet again a different head, the roaring head with painted spines with the curved tail. You've got the train head, you've got the blast head, and then obviously we showed off at the event. Then sort of the other 2 are all clear blue figures.
Yeah, I'm.
And so you may need all 6, but for somebody else, it's like 1 or 2 of these is fine, and you've got the storyline. But they're all sort of almost like we're taking moments of the storyline,
sure,
and putting that into the blind box.
Yeah, well, so it's 7, right? There's 7 here.
Yes, I guess so.
Yeah, that's a whole lot of -1.
I thought there were only 6, but clearly there's 7 here. Yeah, you're right. See, same thing. I thought it was 6. Maybe we're showing one twice. Are we? We're not.
No, they're all unique.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
You're right. It's 7.
Yeah. Well, so it seems like this is going to start making its way into Target. Godzilla.com reporting right now, so at the very least it'll be very soon. I've got a whole bunch of feelers out because no Target Canada. I'm really hoping to get these ones.
I think I can be wrong here, but I think that we're pretty close to having an alternate distribution channel set up in Canada. So things like Target exclusives, those are Target domestic United States. So technically international, which would be Canada, there is a partner that we can then send those to in Canada. But I don't know if it's 100% baked yet.
Okay, I'm gonna cross all my fingers.
Yeah.
So Nice, because otherwise I'm just at the mercy of secondhand or aftermarket. Um, Speaking of which, I wanted to touch base with you about the fifth series, the Metallic series, because when we first
Yeah.
spoke about this Godzilla Day, it was starting to make its way out, and
Yeah.
there are still people finding like fresh cases.
And
But
people will continue to find fresh cases. These are still going to get sorted in for a while yet.
okay,
The back end mechanism of how all these things get to shelf sometimes gets a little wonky.
mm-hmm.
I know based on where we are in the inventory position and what's coming that the majority of the metallic silver, I would say only about a third of all that's designed to go to Target has made it to shelf because
Okay.
of some other issues that have nothing to do with Target, nothing to do with Godzilla, nothing to do with anything else, whatever. Because they're still here. There's a whole host of just how things make it to shelf.
Sure.
So these will continue to show up for a little while yet.
Okay.
So there was just sort of it's not even a supply chain disruption. I can't, if I say what happened out loud, then people feel bad and, oh,
Sure.
are you talking shit about this? I'm not. So they did not get flowed to shelf the way normally things get flowed to shelf.
Gotcha.
So like where -1 is getting flowed to shelf as it's supposed to, boom, landed, is there. Like this Godzilla one started to get flowed to shelf, but then something went haywire.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of them are still sitting in our warehouse that Target has already spoken for and will make it to shelf.
Okay.
But it's just going to take a little while. So I would tell everybody is like, hold your roll.
Yeah.
Like these are still showing up and will continue to show up for a little while. So if you've missed it, it's not that it's gone forever.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are still coming out.
Okay.
It's going to be, for whatever reason, this series is just going to be a little bit more hit or miss before it arrives.
Okay, gotcha. Well, thank you so much for clarifying that, because yeah, it's talking to some of my folks who like regularly looking for these things, like they've been very, I guess frustrated. They're like, I can't find it. So
well, and then what's happening is, in a good way or a bad way, depending on how you look at it, is people are excited and they just, when they show up and it's there, they go cool and they grab the flat.
Yeah.
And they buy the whole flat at once rather than one or two boxes. Mm-hmm. And so then it makes it even harder for people to find, because then you've got to go through the whole, okay, which store's out of stock? Are they replenishing? And when's it coming back in? All that other sort of stuff. But metallic will be around.
Great.
We've got plenty of inventory still in metallic. It just hasn't flowed out to distribution correctly.
Gotcha. Okay, sounds good. So for the folks that are looking for this, maybe don't go to eBay quite yet. Give it a little bit more time, and
don't pay scalpers for this one yet.
Cool. Yet.
Can we pause for 1 second?
Yeah, of course.
Just because lunch just showed up.
Yeah. Go for it.
A bite or two to get me going. All right, let's go.
All right.
Finish the rest of the minute.
So, February brought us the formal launch of the Toho Fun series. We got our first special silver edition back in November. But now here we are. We've got Godzilla 89, Mechagodzilla 93, Godzilla -1, and then a Godzilla -1 minus color variant exclusive to Amazon, which will be shipping later this month. We've talked about the Fun series before, and what it means to you, and how it really speaks to the history of Super 7. But now that these guys are out, like what are you seeing? Or people seem to be digging them.
People are excited about it. I mean, they're out, but they're sort of not out. Like technically you can order them from us, but you'll be able to find them at Target in April and Walmart in May.
Okay.
So that in a lot of ways for me, they don't really start coming out till April or May, because that's when people will be able to walk into a store and buy them. And I think the same thing that we heard for so many people at New York Toy Fair, you've got them there in hand. It's like when you see them on screen, you see the packaging, you think one thing. When you see them in person, and that they're always, I think for you, Kyle, they were bigger than you were expecting.
Yes.
And you hold them, you start moving the heads and everything. You're like, oh wait, these are way cooler than I thought they were.
Yep.
And I'm not just leading the witness there. It was the same sort of feedback we got from everybody at Toy Fair, which is like, oh, now that I see these together, and I've held one. I'm like, oh, I get what you guys are doing now. This is really cool. This is really different, and this is really fun. Oh,
There you
which is the
go.
whole point. It's fun.
Yeah, it really, when you get it in hand, like it fits nicely in your hand. It's a good size, but it's not too heavy. It feels a nice weight, and then the soft vinyl, it's very satisfying to hold in hand. Like,
Yeah.
I know when I put that video, people are like, "What is this? What is it?" I'm like, "No, you need to trust me. Like, get one of these things in your hand, you'll get it." And then slowly you see the comments. It's like, "Hey, I picked up an 89. I picked up the -1. Like, yeah, they're awesome." So, yeah, I'm seeing the booth wall at Toy Fair was really cool. Just seeing all the different lines sort of coming together.
Oh, yeah.
But one thing that we saw was Wave 2, which I was really surprised to see so quickly, because Wave 1 just came out.
It doesn't actually come out till I think Q4 though. I mean,
Okay.
I don't think it's coming out till October or November, but we've got test shots of them. I mean, how cute is that Destroyer?
Oh, he's awesome. I was joking with Kyle that I think every version of Destroyer needs to be an occupational hazard. But maybe not this one, but he's got the horn.
Yeah, he's got the horn, but yeah. Same thing. It's like, and then when you start to put them all together, they're really fun. But that Destroyer is great. The Burning's great. And then sort of taking a left turn for what no one's expecting with 2001.
Yes, I was so shocked, like in a good way, to see 2001, because that's my favorite Godzilla movie. And
okay.
This is actually your first piece of Millennium merchandise, which is very exciting.
We're mixing it all up here, Kyle. It's like it's a chili. Trying to. I don't know. I've even lost the analogy. I've lost the joke. Anyways, everybody, like, it's just we're throwing it all in here.
Yeah.
I got -1. I got Millennium. I got there's another one I haven't done yet, but we're gonna get there. But yeah.
Yeah. Really, really looking forward to see what comes of this line. And so it sounds like every 6 months, approximately 6 to 7 months.
Yeah, I think twice a year. Is the goal, and then there might be a couple special ones like the Amazon along the way.
Okay.
But I think that's roughly the cadence. But they're super cute. I mean, come on. I don't think have I seen a Destroyer that cute before? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm just curious how long it'll be until the first Glow version. Poker face, Brian. Poker face.
I may have some different ideas in the beginning.
All right. We'll leave it there for now. So first seen at New York Toy Fair, and it seems like some folks are starting to get these in hand now.
Somebody's got it in hand because their hands are on it.
First look at Super Kaiju Wave 2. We've got Burning Godzilla 95 here. He appears to be cast in translucent plastic in the body and the thighs, which is distinctly different than the Wave 2 Ultimate Godzilla.
Yes. Yeah, he is in clear orange. Yeah, you can see it on the arms as well. And and then painted over in black. The Super Kaiju line has done great for us and Target. This is a Target exclusive line, and they really wanted a more price point friendly Godzilla, but they wanted something that was more elaborate, than a reaction figure. They didn't really feel like they could bring in Ultimates, which, to be fair, would be a difficult proposition for their customer. And so they're restocking on 89 and Mechagodzilla because they sold out too quickly for a lot of people, and then supplementing it here with Burning Godzilla 95.
That's awesome. And it's great to hear that Wave 1 is being restocked. So, hopefully this is another line that we'll get to see and get to some really interesting places with. Now, Kyle told me that there's another figure in Wave 2, or like launching alongside this one, but it hasn't yet been released. Or revealed, I should say.
There's figures that we're working on. I don't know that it launches at the same time because this one comes out now. I think it launches a little bit later this year, but there are some other figures that we're working on, yes.
Okay, cool. And do you have a sense of when? Oh, I guess it's somebody has it in hand, so I guess it's coming out fairly soon.
I think clearly somebody's got it in hand. So this one comes out. I think most of this stuff. The big reset for Target is April.
Mm-hmm.
So April, the whole thing turns over.
Gotcha.
So sometimes stuff starts showing up a little bit before that, which may be happening here because they're out. And if they're out, they're not going to wait for the reset. They're just going to put it out. So it may start showing up earlier. But yeah, between now and April is when this will start really hitting shelves.
Okay. Very, very cool. New Super Cyborg, Mechagodzilla, the vintage toy version.
Yes. So we did the first version in all clear, and this one is completely a tribute to the Bullmark Mechagodzilla paint sprays.
Is it this one?
No.
Or is this a different figure that's doing the same?
That's a marmot. That's not even a Bullmark.
Okay.
Tell by the extra long neck. Sorry, Kyle.
I tried.
Google Bullmark missile fire Godzilla, and you're like, oh, it's the exact same color as this.
Yeah.
And there you are. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Obviously, we did the clear first because it looks so awesome to see all that robotic insides on everything. Mm-hmm. And then when we got into here, it was like, I know Mechagodzilla is silver, but in many ways, to me, this is the iconic Mechagodzilla colorway. Mm-hmm. The Bullmark one just is that missile fire, and it's just such a cool with that metallic sort of teal on the dark gray. Like, I love that color, and so we went down this route. We went down the this colorway because it looks cool.
Yeah, it really does look cool, and I love the in-hand photos that show like that metallic teal. It looks really, really cool. Evidently, I'm not familiar with the vintage toy that's homaging, but I can definitely appreciate just the actual product. So, yeah, this thing looks really, really, really cool.
Yeah, and it's, like I said, the chest comes off, the arms come off, the legs come off. Legs come off.
Yeah, legs come off too.
And then you can even flap down the little door and lightning bolts. It's such a fun toy. Yeah. And if anybody doesn't know, it's also a fully articulated action figure that you can take all the parts off of. So even after you take all the parts, it still moves its arms and legs.
Yeah, the big old 9 right there. 9 points of articulation.
9 points of articulation.
Awesome. Now,
because you got to rotate the hands to make the arms pop off, the arm mechanism, and you got to put them in there, and they help lock them in place too.
Yes. Right.
It's a real pain if you don't know that ahead of time.
And next, there you go. I got to simmer on this for a moment again.
That's technically also MG2.
It just doesn't end.
It doesn't end. Why you got to treat me like that, Kyle?
I'm sorry, Brian. I'm sorry. Wave 5 Toho Ultimates finally here, 19 months later, but who's counting? Yeah, so we've got Battra Imago and Mothra Imago's form from the 1992 film. What can you tell me about these, Brian?
Just that, Battra's so cool. It's this. So what you're probably asking me is that this is supposed to be a 3-figure wave, and the third figure is still coming, but we just keep making the third figure better, and so he's been sort of pulled out for a hot minute.
Right.
But I love Battra. The design of him is just so cool, and it's great. And then Mothra's, once again, Mothra, classic. You can never go wrong with Mothra. Same thing. The twin fairies in the little travel box there. Mm-hmm. It's awesome. They're really great figures, and they're really great characters, and they're typically not made a lot because they're difficult and cumbersome.
Sure.
It's like, here's all my other figures that stand up on their 2 legs, and I've got all these guys, and then I've got these wide, low things that make no sense, that don't stand up very well. Like, how do you deal with that, kind of thing? Mm-hmm. So, I've been looking forward to this one for a while. It's actually been done for a while, and I'm finally getting it out. The third figure that goes with this, I think, is going to melt people's brains. Like we had it, and then we made it cool, and it was done, And then we made it even cooler and added some other things to it, and it was really cool and something no one's seen before. And
Yeah.
then they came up with another idea to make it even cooler, and that's what has delayed it from going out on with these. But
Uh-huh.
the question mark, the it's an iterative of something that I has never. It's kind of been done in Toy for, but never like this. It'll be a thing where you're like, I never thought I was going to get that.
Right.
That the third thing is, I never thought I was going to get that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you mentioned on Instagram that the third one would be coming very soon. Do you see this coming after the pre-order window for the first two?
I think it really just comes back down to when the final sample gets approved. It could be, I don't know the exact date.
Okay.
I know we were hoping to get it up while this was up,
Yeah.
but it really all comes back down to the final sample,
Okay.
because we got to show you this figure. Because when we
Yes.
show it to you, you'll be like, "Oh my god!"
Okay. Very cool. So, not to take away from these two, because these two are also really, really solid. And I wanted to hear from you, because I don't know if I'm, me being the channel that I am and me being biased, but like the reception I've seen to these two has been really, really strong and positive. People really excited. Like you mentioned, these characters don't get made very often, and so to have another opportunity to own Battra and Mothra, like,
Yeah.
what's the reception been like on your end?
I think it's been good. I don't know if it's been like overwhelming or solid or whatever. I guess I'm so focused on the third figure and getting it finished
Mm,
that I knew it was off to a good start and that people were excited and was like, cool, check, next.
yeah.
So my take is that people are excited about it. I hear a little bit more about Mothra than I do about Battra, but it may be just Mothra's eternal. Like, come on, like.
Right.
I would argue in terms of like the most recognizable characters to the layperson, I
Mm-hmm.
would argue that Mothra is more recognizable than King Ghidorah to the layperson.
Right.
you know, and it's like, oh, there's Godzilla, Mechagodzilla, Mothra. People talk about Rodan, but if you show a picture of him, they can't really pick him out of a lineup.
Yeah.
And then in Godzilla world, like King Ghidorah is he's the guy, he's everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
But outside of there, they're like, I don't know who the three-headed guy is, but I know who Mothra is.
Yeah.
So I think there's a wider audience for Mothra, but that's why we got to make sure we make Battra, because you got to learn about Battra too.
Yeah, you see like these conversations around like Toho's big five, like Godzilla, Mecha, Godzilla, Rodan, Mothra, Ghidorah. But I think as we're starting to see like in sort of customer trends, it's really like the big two, Godzilla, Mecha, Godzilla, a little bit further down Mothra, and then further down Rodan, Ghidorah, and then it's like everybody else.
I would argue it's Ghidorah, and then Rodan is even below that.
I see. But I do think that like the concept of like the big five is a little bit outdated at this point. But
Well, it's a very Showa specific point of view too. And
right.
I realize you can argue that it's also into the beginning of Heisei because they use those same characters, but like nobody's out there on a general population, not between us, because we would be, but nobody's out there going like, I need Fire Rodan. And it's like, no, I need Fire Rodan. You might need Fire Rodan. Anybody that sat through like 40 minutes of this to get to this point probably needs Fire Rodan. But a lot of other people are not particularly, they're like, I don't even know which one Rodan is. I just know his name.
I'm sorry, that impression was it was really funny.
That's all right. Hey, I got one.
There you go.
But
I talked to Kyle, and the flight stands, the bases will be the Mothra sigil, so that's really cool.
Yep.
Really, really looking forward to grabbing these guys. Then we have the super pack, of course, and we got some antenna beams for Mothra, and then the prism beams for Battra. And this is exclusive to Super7's website. You have to pre-order both of these guys direct from Super7 in order to get the super pack. In some ways, it's kind of nice to see this third figure delayed, just so like the folks that were like, I really want Mothra, I really want Battra, like it makes a little bit more digestible for them. Though
Yeah,
I
yeah.
am super curious to see what this third figure is, and how you guys are just making it better and better and better and better.
The third figure is really really cool, really cool.
That's really awesome to hear, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I think last time we spoke, and like the news broke that there were going to be 3 figures planned for this wave. I think I was just like so flashbanged by that news that I didn't really have time to like process it. But it really gets like the brain thinking about like what 3 figures could look like for Toho, and like just like really quickly looking how
Here's some future sets that I'd like to make.
yeah, like they're things that make sense. Like, you know, Godzilla 54, like he doesn't have another monster, so it makes sense for him to sort of piggyback onto a wave where there are 2 monsters. Or Godzilla 99, the Millennium, like that suit.
With Orga. Yeah.
People argue. It's not that people argue with that. I guess the 99 and the 2000 suit are considered different, but like for a toy, for an Ultimate, like with Orga and Megaguirus makes sense. But
Yeah.
or, you know, Terror of Mechagodzilla, there were 3 monsters in the film, so it's really interesting to see how.
I'm just gonna slide Titanosaurus in here one more time. Just I don't know if you're gonna notice this, but you know we're just gonna keep it down here. Yeah. Okay.
So all of that to say is I'm very curious to see what it looks like moving forward. Ultimates, you know.
Well, you know, quite frankly, and to your point though, you know, we may end up in a zone where it makes more sense to just be at 2 at a time because of price.
Right.
Because these figures tend to be so much bigger and more elaborate than others. But there's so many figures. We got a lot of work. We got a lot of work that we're working on right now.
Right.
We're gonna treat you guys right. We're gonna make you feel special.
Of course. And just curious to hear from you in terms of frequency of waves, because it's been a hot minute since wave 4.
It's been a good minute, because I think, you know, when we talk about this, I think if anybody's watched other interviews, which maybe you do, maybe you don't, you know, there's a really big difference between what happens when we sell something as a pre-order and when we can sell something that's in stock. And in stock, product just does better. But typically we have a difficult time, or we've had a difficult time at times getting to that point with product. Like we need to do a pre-order to make sure it can happen. And then you're not guessing. So it's this back and forth. So, you know, we're still sort of trying to figure out at what point, like, we can transition to a more in-stock oriented business rather than a pre-order oriented business. And at that point, you know, that's why some of the cadences got, like, we had a lot of Godzilla Ultimates we needed to deliver.
Right.
And then we threw in the -1.
Yeah.
And it was like, well, we need to deliver that stuff and make sure that people get -1 before we really come out with another wave again.
Right.
Because people need to get what they paid for first before they buy the next thing. And so that's why it took so long to get these out. But I'm excited to have them out, and like I said, can't wait for number 3. Here we go, number 3. Let's do this. Number 3.
Number 3. I've been referring to it as 5B, like wave 5B.
5B. Yeah, there you go.
And like, oh, can't wait for 5B. Well, thank you very much, Brian, for your time. Really appreciate it. You know, lots of great stuff coming up. Lots of stuff that's been shown off in stock, available now, blind boxes, pre-order, Ultimates, all there's so much. I can't even wrap my head around it. But thank you so much for
it's a great time to be a Godzilla collector.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll throw your socials in the description. Is there any parting words, anything you wanted to share with?
Nothing, just thank you to everybody for continued support of all the product we're making for the various Godzilla franchises. There's a lot of exciting stuff in the hopper, and I think you're going to be really happy with it. And yeah, more Godzilla. More Godzilla.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian, and thank you to everyone for watching, and talk to you again soon.